Today we'll be starting a very important chapter and question will always come from here. Okay. So tuberculosis, very important chapter, a very huge chapter in your book as well because it not only involves the disease aspect but a very huge preventive aspect and a very huge programmatic aspect. This program based on the tuberculosis is a very important part in India's public health. Okay, so this is why the tuberculosis chapter is very important. Today we'll mainly be focusing on the disease aspect, and the next lecture will be focusing more on the programmatic aspect. Okay, so as you know, Robert Koch, he discovered the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacilli. So it is a most important public health issue in India, and every year around 10 million people fall ill with TB. So it is a very high incidence. And despite being a preventable and curable disease, 1.5 million people around that die from TB each year. Okay? This is the world's top infectious killer. The top infectious cause of death, tuberculosis, and a bulk of it is composed by the cases in India. So TB is a leading cause of death with people with HIV also, right? And a major contributor to the antimicrobial resistance. That is a very emerging problem in the world right now. Okay? So TB has a high incidence. It has a high chance of death. Okay? It contributes to a high chance of death. It is contributing to greater antimicrobial resistance, and it is the leading cause of death of people with HIV. So it primarily affects the lungs and causes pulmonary tuberculosis. So the tubercle bacilli, as you know, it is residing inside the lungs. It remains dormant there, latent there, and sometimes in some cases the disease activates and becomes an active TB, right? It affects the lungs. So it is not always causing the disease, but under the right conditions, it can cause the tuberculosis disease. Otherwise, around 80 to 90% of the people have the tubercle bacilli in their lungs. But not everyone is having tuberculosis, right? So, tuberculosis is happening under the right conditions, and we'll see what are the contributing conditions to that. A person needs to inhale only a few germs to become infected. So, how is it spreading? There is a droplet infection, droplet spread. The mode of transmission is droplet spread. If a person is coughing and another person, susceptible person is nearby, they can contract the disease from that droplet. That is a mode of transmission. The disease also affects animals like cattle and causes disease in other animals like bovine tuberculosis, right? And it affects where? It can affect the brain, it can affect the cervical lymph node, okay, other lymph nodes and other things apart from the lungs. So this is what is, and it is also affecting the spine and called Pott's disease, right? It can affect bone, kidney, pleura, okay, apart from the lung. So, what is this called? This is extrapulmonary tuberculosis. Apart from the lung, the other parts of the body can also be affected by the tubercle bacilli. So, that is the extrapulmonary tuberculosis, EPTB. Okay, PTB and EPTB. So, what are the symptoms of the active TB? There can be chest pain, pain with breathing, cough, okay. There can be loss of appetite. There can be chills, unintentional weight loss and significant weight loss, more than 10% of the weight loss of the body in 6 months, okay. There can be fatigue, there is night sweats, there is fever, low grade fever, especially at night. There is coughing of a blood and coughing that lasting more than 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. So whenever there is a patient coming with a history of cough for more than 2 to 3 weeks, then they are being tested for tuberculosis. That is this mandatory screening that you have to do for each patient, whether they seem like a patient of tuberculosis or not. So coughing more than 2 to 3 weeks, then mainly the fever, low grade fever, night sweats, significant weight loss, okay, fatigue, and other symptoms. These are the main classical symptoms of tuberculosis if there is an active disease. Now, natural history of the disease, you might know this, is uninfected people, there is environmental exposure, infection is there, and it can cause primary tuberculosis. Now, if the disease is contained or there is latent infection and the disease is contained after maybe taking the drug or it is contained automatically, then again the disease can reactivate in the future. Okay? So, why? Because again, under the right conditions, right, in children less than 5 years, in HIV patients, etc., then, or if the immune system is getting affected, okay, there is problem in nutrition, in those conditions there can be reactivation of the disease in the body. So globally what is happening? In 2018, 1.5 million people died from TB. Like this is pre-COVID data. Okay. In 2018, the 1.5 million people died from TB, and now tuberculosis is the leading cause of the people with HIV. But only 5 to 15% of the people who are infected by the TB bacilli are falling ill with the active TB disease. The rest have TB infection, but they are not ill and they cannot transmit the disease. So, both the TB infection and the disease are curable using antibiotics. And most of the people who fall ill with TB, they live in low and middle income countries, but TB is present all over the world. So, in India, right, in 2018, this was a high incidence and many number of around 500,000 TB deaths. Why? Because there is a high socio-economic burden in India. Majority of them belong to the poverty level. Okay, they are belonging to the poverty level. It is also called the disease of the poor, and 2/3 of the cases are said to be in males. But it kills more women in reproductive age group, and 1/3 of female infertility in India it is contributing. So more than 90% of the economic burden of TB in India is caused by the loss of life rather than the morbidity. And it is the earliest opportunistic disease to develop among the person living with HIV. So it is again, this HIV is cropping up time and again because this TB and HIV co-infection is seen most in this country, right? So who is most at risk? All age group are at risk. They are in developing countries, and people who are infected with TB are 19 times HIV with 19 times to more likely to develop this active TB disease, and the risk of TB is also greater in person with impaired immune system. Then again, due to poor nutrition, what is happening? There is TB cases. The children is a vulnerable age group, they can fall ill. So there is a pediatric TB disease, and they are also dying from the disease. Again, alcohol use disorder and tobacco smoking, they increase the risk of the disease by a factor of 3.3 and 1.6 respectively. So nowadays what is happening? There are studies going on regarding the relation between TB active disease and tobacco consumption. Okay, so this is another risk factor that is assumed that is contributing to more TB disease and more TB deaths. That is increased tobacco consumption. Okay, so as you can see, the nutrition is a part, the immune system is a part. Okay, HIV is one contributing factor. Reproductive age women, they are vulnerable, children are vulnerable, and alcohol use disorder and tobacco consumption, these are all increasing the risk of TB. So these are all the risk factors of TB. If his question is asked what are the risk factors of TB, these are the primary reasons. Okay. And what are some extrapulmonary TB disease? There is a tubercular meningitis, disseminated TB, tuberculous pericarditis, then pleurisy, that is it is affecting the pleura, spinal TB with neurological complication like Pott's disease. Okay, we already know this. Now, this is very important. Some terms that are related to TB. Incidence. What are incidence? Bolo? New cases. So, number of new and recurrent episodes of TB, all forms occurring in a given year. So, whoever is like brand new case and whoever is having the relapse or the recurrent case, again the TB is occurring. So, that is also considered under the incidence of TB. Then prevalence is what? New and old case. Very good. So the number of TB cases at any given point of time. Okay. So it is a best available practical index to estimate the case load in a community or the burden in a community. And age specific prevalence of patient is the most relevant. Now what is mortality? The deaths. So number of deaths caused by TB in HIV negative people. Okay, mortality from TB we are usually seeing in HIV negative people. Case fatality rate, risk of death from TB among the people with active TB disease, that can be calculated as case fatality rate. Then case notification rate. This is an important thing. What is case notification rate? Means how many times the disease is being notified, right? So new and recurrent episodes of TB notified to WHO for a given year expressed per 100,000 population. So per 100,000 population, how many new and recurrent cases of TB are being notified to WHO? That is called case notification rate. And case detection rate, calculated as a number of notification of new and relapse cases in a year divided by the estimated incidence of such cases in the same year. Means out of the total number of cases that should be detected, that is the incidence of TB, how many cases are being actually detected? Okay, the proportion. So, how many cases should occur in a given year? That should be in the denominator, and then in the numerator, how many cases are being actually detected? New and recurrent cases. So, that is the case detection rate. The case detection rate should also be high, so that we know that the surveillance system of a country is active and ongoing. Okay, that is the case detection rate. Then there is a prevalence of drug resistance cases. Nowadays, it is very important. The MDR TB is on the rise, the multi-drug resistant TB is on the rise, and again, as I said, that it is a important case of cause of this antimicrobial resistance. So, this prevalence of drug resistant case is very important. Prevalence of patient excreting TB bacilli resistant to anti-TB drugs. Okay, so how many patients are actually shedding the resistant TB bacilli? Then prevalence of infection, the percentage of individuals who show a positive reaction to the standard tuberculin test. Now there is an infection, there is the active disease. Okay, if what is infection? If a pathogen enters into the body, okay, and multiplies, then that is infection, right? That is infection. Even if it doesn't multiply and remains dormant, that is also latent infection. But the people who are being infected, they are not all developing the active disease, as we saw that 5 to 15% only are developing the active disease. So but we can detect the infection is present in the person or not by the tuberculin test or the Mantoux test. Okay, the Mantoux test, you might have heard of it in your previous microbiology, I guess. So, Mantoux test is a detection of the TB infection, but that doesn't mean that they are having the disease. Okay, so the percentage of individuals who show a positive reaction to the standard tuberculin test, that is the prevalence of infection in the population. How many of people are having the TB bacilli in them? Okay, and incidence of infection is annual infection rate. How many people are getting infected annually? So percentage of population under study who will be newly infected by Mycobacterium tuberculosis among non-infected of the preceding survey during the course of 1 year. So during the previous year, how many people were actually non-infected? So they are susceptible. They are the susceptible population. So now this year among the susceptible population, how many of them will get infected? That is the incidence, the new cases, estimation of the new cases. So whatever it is, in public health what happens is, rather than actually calculating now and deciding now what to do, we are always estimating how many people can be infected this year. How can we estimate that? We estimate by the prevalence of the previous year. We estimate by seeing the trends of the previous 5 years or 10 years. So from that we estimate that this year how many people are likely to get infected, and we then take corrective measures for that. So in that way the system works. That is, who will newly be infected by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis in this year, that is the incidence that we are estimating. Now again in this year I estimated one thing, and then I will continue the surveillance and see among the people estimated how many of them are actually detected. So by case detection rate, if it is high, then I can say my surveillance system is very good. Okay, then I can maintain that and then carry on to the next year. So the surveillance system, estimation of this, all these things are going hand in hand. Now the definitions of the tuberculosis disease, case definitions. What are case definitions? Their case definitions, they are given by the governing bodies like WHO and other bodies, health governing bodies. In our country, there is the ICMR, okay, and other government bodies. Now what are they doing? They are giving some case definitions how to classify TB patients among the population. So there is a presumptive case. There is a presumptive case or the TB suspect patient who presents with the symptoms or signs suggestive of TB. As I said, the symptoms and signs: cough for more than 3 weeks, okay, who are coughing up blood, who are having night sweats, who are having the night fever, who are having significant weight loss. All these symptoms, if they are having, then there is a presumptive case of the TB suspect patient who presents with the symptoms or signs suggestive of TB. They are the presumptive cases of TB. Bacteriological confirmed TB case. So the biological specimen is positive by spear microscopy, culture or expert MTB-RIF. Means whoever is being confirmed by the laboratory test. That is called the bacteriologically confirmed TB case. The term should be is important. Bacteriologically confirmed TB case. So there can be positive by smear microscopy. You can see the acid fast bacilli under the microscope in those cases. Okay, you can do it by culture, you can do it by expert, gene expert, or you can do it by nowadays CBNAT. Okay, and clinically diagnosed TB cases, one who does not fulfill the criteria for bacteriological confirmation but has been diagnosed with active TB by clinician or other medical practitioner who has decided to give the patient full course of TB treatment. Means sometimes what happens is, again, no test is 100% accurate. Okay, sometimes the patient is not coming positive for the TB, not coming positive for the TB tests, bacteriologically confirmed TB test. But all the signs and symptoms and whatever is diagnosis is made by the clinician point towards active TB. Okay, maybe by X-ray also they are seeing that TB disease can occur, the classical features of TB are there, but you cannot confirm that by the bacteriological tests, okay, like CBNAT or gene expert or smear microscopy. So in that case, if you decide to start the TB treatment, okay, then that is a clinically diagnosed TB case. If you decide to start the TB treatment, there is a clinically diagnosed TB case. Okay, now the classification. Now you have formed who can be the TB cases. Now how you classify the TB cases? Their classifications can be of many types. They are you can do it by anatomical site, pulmonary TB, extrapulmonary TB. Okay, then can be history of previous TB treatment, new patients and previously treated patients. What are new patients? They are patients having never been treated for TB before or have been treated for less than 1 month. Okay, if a patient comes who are starting the treatment, they have never taken the treatment before or have taken the treatment before for less than 1 month. So they are classified as new case. And they are the previously treated cases. What are the previously treated cases? They are who received 1 month or more treatment in the past. Okay, whoever has received 1 month of treatment or more months of treatment in the past, they are the previously treated cases. Okay. Then there is the relapse patients. Previously been treated for TB were declared cured or the treatment completed at the end of their most recent course of TB and but are now diagnosed with a recurrent episode of TB. So relapse patients are those who have taken the TB treatment, okay, at the end of the most recent course of TB treatment they have been declared as treatment completed or cured, but they have again now come with the new disease, that is called the relapse patients. Then there is a treatment after failure patients, those who have previously been treated for TB and whose treatment failed at the end of their most recent course of TB. Okay, most recent course of the treatment of TB. That is the treatment after failure. Lost to follow-up, previously been treated for TB and were declared lost to follow-up at the end of their most recent course of treatment. This term is occurring again and again, the most recent course of treatment. So it can happen that the patient may have taken multiple treatments before, they have been infected by TB again and again or relapsing again and again, but you have to always take in account the most recent course of treatment. So at the end of the most recent course of treatment, if they have been lost to follow up, then they are the treatment after lost to follow up patients. Okay. All these are coming under the previously treated patients. Okay. There is a new case and the previously treated case. Under previously treated case, these are all the classifications. The relapse patients, the treatment after failure, the treatment after loss to follow up. Then other previously treated patients, those who have previously been treated for TB but whose outcome after their most recent course of treatment is unknown or undocumented. Okay. And patients with unknown previous TB treatment history do not fit into any of the classifications listed above. New and relapse cases of TB are incident TB cases. So another is the what is missing here? Can you tell what outcome is missing here? These are all the outcomes that can happen after treatment, right? So there can be relapse, there can be treatment after failure, treatment after loss to follow up, other previously treated patients, patients with unknown TB, unknown previous TB treatment history. Another outcome that is missing here is cured, right? An outcome that can happen after TB treatment is they are cured. Okay, they can be cured. That is, they have been confirmed to be bacteriologically negative at the end of their most recent course of treatment, or there can be treatment completed. That is, they have completed the treatment but the bacteriological outcome at the end of their most recent course of treatment is not known. So that can be cured or that can be treatment completed. But if the patient has come again with all these things, then that is the previously treated cases now again presenting with the new case. So then you can classify based on the drug resistance. There can be mono-resistance, polyresistance, multi-drug resistance, extensive drug resistance and rifampicin resistance. Based on drug resistance, if there is no resistance, then it is drug sensitive TB. If there is resistance, then can be mono-resistance, resistance to one first line anti-TB drug only. There are first line anti-TB drugs, there are second line anti-TB drugs. First line anti-TB drug, if it is resistant to only one of them, then it is called mono-resistance. If it is resistant to more than one first line anti-TB drug other than both isoniazid and rifampicin, there are two drugs, isoniazid, rifampicin. Apart from that, if the drug is also resistant to any other first line drug, then that is the polydrug resistance. Then there is the multi-drug resistance, resistant to at least both isoniazid and rifampicin. If it is resistant to at least both of them, then that is the multi-drug resistance. Okay. Extensive drug resistance, resistance to any fluoroquinolone, at least one or three second line injectable, one of the three second line injectable drugs, in addition to the multi-drug resistance. So if it is resistant to any fluoroquinolone, like ciprofloxacin, etc., and at least one of the three second line injectable drugs, then that is the extensive drug resistant TB. And then there is the rifampicin resistance, resistance to rifampicin detected using phenotyping or genotyping methods with or without resistance to other anti-TB drugs. Okay, if it is resistant to only rifampicin. So these are the classification based on the drug resistance. And classification based on HIV status, HIV positive TB patients, if any bacteriologically confirmed or clinically diagnosed case of TB has a positive result from HIV testing conducted at the time of TB diagnosis or other documented evidence of enrollment in HIV case. So there can be HIV positive TB patients, there can be HIV negative TB patient who is confirmed case of TB or clinically diagnosed case of TB but has a negative result from HIV testing conducted at the time of TB diagnosis. So whenever there is a diagnosis of TB, you do the HIV test as well and see their HIV status. HIV status unknown TB patient who has no result of HIV testing and no other documented evidence of enrollment of HIV care. Okay, so they may be already taking HIV treatment as well, but TB has developed. So in that case also you can classify them according to their HIV status. Okay. Now, how to find the cases? How to find the cases? We are now coming into the diagnosis part. Very important. Firstly, what? There is sputum examination. Sputum examination by microscopy. Okay. So, sputum examination, this is the method of choice and 2 early morning samples are taken, day 1 and day 2. Okay. At least 2 early morning samples, day 1 and day 2. And you see them under the microscope and count the acid fast bacilli. If there is no acid fast bacilli per 100 oil immersion fields, then is 0. Okay, the the bacteriological load is 0. If there is 1 to 9 AFB per 100 oil immersion fields, then it is said to be scanty. 10 to 99 per 100 oil immersion fields, it is single plus. 1 to 10 AFB per oil immersion field, double plus, and more than 10 AFB per oil immersion field is triple plus. So this is the classification according to the number of bacilli recorded in sputum examination. Okay, you have recently, I think, read microbiology. How do you detect, how do you prepare a slide for the AFB? মিথিলিন ব্লু কোথায় গেল? লাস্টে মিথিলিন ব্লু দিতে হবে তো, নাহলে তুমি এফবিটা আলাদা করবে কি করে ফ্রম দ্য ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড, রাইট? So carbol fuchsin, very correct. Then you add H2SO4, right? Wash that with acetone. After heating carbol fuchsin diye, you first heat, right? First you so that the carbol fuchsin is, if there is AFB present, it is integrating with the AFB. You heat it first, okay? Mix with H2SO4. Then you wash it off with acetone. Okay, I'm not sure about the H2SO4 though, I don't remember that much, but I know then it is washed off with acetone, and after that, after keeping it drying, you mix with the methylene blue. Okay, then you again what, wash it after was 1 minute of I think not even 1 minute, 20 seconds or 30 seconds of contact with methylene blue, and then you wash it, dry it, and then put it on the microscope and give one drop of the oil and see under the oil immersion field. Okay, and by that you do the AFB measuring. Then you do the radiography, useful for the diagnosis of smear negative pulmonary TB, miliary TB, etc. So by the chest radiograph you can see whether there is pulmonary TB or not. Sputum culture, microcolony detected on solid media, radiometric backtake 460 TB method, MG 960, MB back system Insta-test. So there are many tests that are there. Okay, many culture, these are all culture tests, right? These are all culture tests of the TB. You might be knowing better because you have studied this before. So these are all there. And then comes the detection of infection, the tuberculin test or the Mantoux test. What is it? Okay. How do you do this? You inject this tuberculin where? Intradermally, right? Intradermally on the flexor surface of the left forearm, midway between elbow and the wrist. Okay? Midway between the elbow and the wrist, you are injecting here intradermally. Okay? 1 tuberculin unit of this PPD in 0.1 ml So you are injecting here and seeing the reaction. What is the reaction in the body to this injection? So what is a positive test? Evidence of past or present infection by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that will give the positive test. It is a means of estimating the prevalence of infection in the population, and one tuberculin unit is used for the Mantoux test in India. So a wheel will generate, and after that you examine that wheel. If it is more than 10 millimeter in diameter, then it is a positive test, and if it is less than 6 millimeter, it is a negative test. Okay, this is a tuberculin test to detect the prevalence of infection in the population. So it is like this. Again, it is showing in a detailed manner. So we can skip this. So what does this positive test and the negative test mean? Okay, if it is showing less reaction, it can be like what? It can be like that there is a less immune reaction. This HIV positive test. Okay, nodular changes. And if it is more than 10 millimeter, means recent arrivals, IV drug users, or many other factors can be there. And if it is more than 50 millimeter, it is shown to be persons with no known risk factors for the TB. Now how you are doing all these tests, now how you are classifying the diagnostic algorithm of the pulmonary TB. How will you diagnose the TB? What is the algorithm? Like how many tests what after what you will do so that you diagnose the TB. Presumptive TB patient, a patient has come to you with the signs and the symptoms. Okay, you do the smear examination, you do the chest x-ray. Okay, you do the smear examination and the chest x-ray. If it is smear positive and chest x-ray suggestive of TB, you start the you are diagnosing them as microbacterial confirmed TB. If it is smear positive but chest x-ray not suggestive of TB, again you are diagnosing them as microbacterially confirmed TB. But if the smear is negative but chest x-ray is suggestive of TB, okay, you are seeing the features of TB on the chest x-ray, then you do the CB-NAT. Again, if both are coming negative but the clinical suspicion is high, then you do the CB-NAT. And in people living with HIV, if the HIV test is positive, you are also again doing the CB-NAT first. So in case of microbiologically confirmed TB, if it is not there, if you cannot confirm the presence of TB bacilli by bacteriological methods, then what you do the CB-NAT. Okay. Now, CB-NAT, what can be the results? That Mycobacterium tuberculosis is detected or not detected. So if it is detected, then you have to finding out if it is rifampicin sensitive, rifampicin indeterminate, or rifampicin resistant. So CB-NAT is one test, that is cartridge based nucleic acid amplification test, okay, which is giving the result whether first of all present or not, the TB is present or not. Secondly, whether it is rifampicin resistant or not. So CB-NAT gives the result of rifampicin resistance as well. So it will give three types of, if positive test will give three types of result. That is, if it is rifampicin sensitive or not, rifampicin indeterminate or not, or rifampicin resistant or not. So if it is sensitive, then again you are classifying it as the microbacterially confirmed TB, microbiologically confirmed TB. If it is rifampicin indeterminate, means they are showing this indeterminate result or inconclusive result in the CB-NAT, then you repeat the CB-NAT on the second sample. And indeterminate on the second sample also, then collect fresh sample for liquid culture or LPA, that is line probe assay, another test after the CB-NAT. And if it is rifampicin resistant, then refer to management for rifampicin resistance. So rifampicin resistance case means you have to again see how many drugs are resistant to. Okay. So according to that, the treatment will start. If the MTB is not detected or CB-NAT result is not available, then consider alternate diagnosis and refer to the specialist. So the diagnosis can be clinically diagnosed TB, or there can be some alternate diagnosis, maybe some other lower respiratory tract infection. Okay. So this is the primary algorithm for how to manage the pulmonary TB patients. Okay. Now if there is a drug resistant TB, if there is a drug resistant TB, then how to manage that drug resistant TB? We have done till here. Now if there is a rifampicin resistant TB, rifampicin resistant TB, what you do that second line trace, that is a line probe assay. Line probe assay will tell you whether this is fluoroquinolone or second line injectable sensitive, or fluoroquinolone and or second line injectable resistance is there or not. That is if it is contributing to the extensive drug resistance or not. Okay. Line probe assay will find out about these other forms of resistance. And if there is rifampicin sensitive TB, under CBNAT, if there is rifampicin sensitive TB, you can again do that this LPA and see whether it is isoniazid resistance or isoniazid sensitive. It can be that there is mono resistance to isoniazid. Okay. So that is the drug resistant TB diagnostic algorithm. So you can see all these types of patients are tested. Presumptive TB cases like key or vulnerable populations are pediatric age group, people living with HIV, EPTB site, or all diagnosed TB patients who are non-responders to treatment, or contacts of the drug-resistant TB cases, or previously treated, or there is co-infection, or there is new TB patients. So all these cases are then tested for CBNAT, and then if you find that there is resistance, or if you find that there is no resistance, or even if there is indeterminate, you then send that samples to the line probe assay and find out whether what other drugs they are resistant to. So now what is happening is correct categorization. Now how will you categorize the TB patients for treatment? We have previously seen the classification of TB patients, but how will you now categorize them for treatment? Previously there used to be like 4 or 5 categories. Okay. Nowadays what is happening is there are only 2 categories: new case and previously treated patients. New case and previously treated patients. So a TB patient who has never had treatment for TB or has taken anti-TB drugs for less than 1 month is considered a new case. And previously treated cases, all those cases, recurrent TB, treatment after failure, etc., etc., who have taken 1 month or more than 1 month anti-TB drugs. Okay. So before it used to be classified as category 1, then category 4, category 5, but these are all removed now, and only these 2 cases are divided. Now what is this? This is based on the TB treatment, new case and previously treated patients. This is in case that the patient has drug sensitive TB. You are giving them this diagnostic algorithm test. If they are not found to be having any type of resistance, then you can treat according to the new case and previously treated. But if they are having resistance, then that comes a separate treatment. It is a separate category. Okay, this is the classification for the drug sensitive cases, that is the new case and the previously treated patients. Okay. So the new case, what is the treatment regimen? And in the IP and the CP, what is IP and the CP? IP is the intensive phase, CP is the continuation phase. So the TB treatment is the drug sensitivity treatment goes on for around 6 months. Around 6 months. Okay, 6 to 7 months. What happens is there is an intensive phase when a more number of drugs are taken, and in the continuation phase later the less number of drugs are taken. So that is the division. So in the new case, 2 months of HRZE means isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide and ethambutol. Z is for pyrazinamide, E is for ethambutol, H is for isoniazid, R is for rifampicin. Okay. So 2 months of HRZE taken daily. This HRZE is a fixed dose combination drug. 1 tablet contains all these 4 drugs and 1 tablet is taken daily. Before it used to be thrice weekly or something. Nowadays it is told that tablet has to be taken daily. for 2 months. So for the intensive phase, that is the HRZE drug, it has to be taken 2 months daily. So every month what happens is the patient is getting a pack of drugs from the center, free drugs. So in that there is a drug for the whole month, 30 tablets in a blister pack. Okay, and in each and the 30 blister pack case, there is each tablet consisting of these 4 drugs in these combinations, fixed dose combinations. So they are taking it for 2 months, HRZE, and then again in the continuation phase, after 2 months you test for that for again if the bacteria has been contained or not. You again do the spear microscopy and see whether the patient, what is the patient status now from before, whether number of bacteria has reduced or not. If the number of bacteria is not reduced, okay, so then you give one additional month of intensive phase. After that you start the continuation phase where there is 4 months of HRE, that is isoniazid rifampicin ethambutol. Okay, no pyrazinamide, you remove the pyrazinamide. In previously treated cases, you give the HRZE-S for 2 months with 1 month of HRZE and then additional 5 months of HRE in the continuation phase. What is S? S is streptomycin. S is streptomycin 1 gram. Okay, 1 gram of streptomycin you are giving for 2 months with HRZE, then 1 month of HRZE only, and then 5 months of HRE. So this is the treatment for drug sensitive TB infection. Okay, drug sensitive TB infection. This adult dosage is there, okay, for the according to the weight category, because there is a certain weight loss in the TB patients, there is a nutrition problem. So in the body weight category, you are telling them how many tablets they should take, or what is the combination that they need to take per day. So in the intensive phase for HRZE, if the combination is in this amount, then they need to take 2 tablets. Here they need to take 3 tablets in this weight category, 4 tablets, 5 tablets. So the weight increases and the dosage also increases. In the continuation phase, it is again like this, and injection streptomycin, according to the weight category, it is given as 0.5 gram per day, 0.75 gram per day, and then 1 gram per day. So above 55 kg and above, it is 4 tablets, 5 tablets, etc. So it is like this. So the dosage of the drugs also increases with the weight of the patient. Okay. Pediatric TB dosage, it is again like this: HRZ in the intensive phase, then ethambutol, and in the continuation phase it is only HR, not E. Okay. So in the pediatric TB, it is a little bit different, the drugs which are taken and the dosage. So again it is categorized under the weight, and if it is and the weight is 25 kg or above, then the adult doses are recommended. But if it is less than 25 kg, the child's weight, then the HRZ, if the combination is like 50, 75, 150 milligram, then 1, 2, 3, 4, these many tablets are taken according to the weight category. There is the ethambutol 100 milligram, and in the continuation phase, only the HR tablets are given, that is the isoniazid and rifampicin. Okay. Streptomycin also can be given in previously treated cases, like this. Now as you know, what are the first line drugs? Rifampicin, isoniazid, streptomycin, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. Second line drugs are fluoroquinolones, ethionamide, capreomycin, kanamycin, amikacin, these are injectables, cycloserine, thioacetazone, macrolides, bedaquiline and delamanid, these are newer drugs, but nowadays they are no longer new, because fixed dose combinations containing this bedaquiline, delamanid have also been released and people are taking it. So these are all the second line drugs. They are not given at first, and they are not given to drug sensitive TB patients. Okay, they are only given to the drug resistant TB patients, the second line drugs, that is the fluoroquinolones, ethionamide, capreomycin, kanamycin, amikacin, these are injectables, cycloserine, thioacetazone, macrolides, bedaquiline and delamanid. They are given as fixed dose combinations in drug resistant TB cases. So, what are the, we will end with this just showing what is a treatment regimen for the drug resistant TB cases. Regimen for treatment of drug resistant TB cases. Now, among them also there are certain classifications based on how many drugs they are resistant to, the bacteria is resistant to. So, the regimen for MDR TB or the rifampicin resistant TB is 6 to 9 months of LFX, that is fluoroquinolone, kanamycin, okay. Then ETO, CS, Z and E, and continuation phase is for 18 months. So total duration is for 24 to 27 months. Then there is isoniazid or monoresistance, that is the fluoroquinolone, then rifampicin, ethambutol, pyrazinamide for 6 to 9 months. It is like this, but so the duration of the disease is longer, for like 24 to 27 months. For 2 years almost they have to take the drug. Okay, but nowadays there are some newer regimens that used to be before. Nowadays newer regimens are there. Why there are newer regimens? Because people are not adhering to like 2 years 3 years of treatment. It is very difficult for the people to maintain. They are leaving the treatment midway. Okay, so now they have introduced this newer drugs so that the period of giving these drugs and the treatment period is shorter for the resistant drug resistant TB cases. So there is a shorter oral bedaquiline containing regimen for 9 to 11 months, shorter injectable containing regimen for 9 to 11 months, and longer oral MDR and XDR TB regimen for 18 to 20 months. Okay, this, if there is an XDR TB, they have to take treatment for 20 months. But the other, a normal MDR or the rifampicin resistant TB, they are there for the shorter duration for 9 to 11 months. Okay. So, shorter oral bedaquiline containing regimen in 9 to 11 months. Intensive phase, it is 4 to 6 months of bedaquiline, then fluoroquinolone, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. This is high dose isoniazid and ethionamide. Then there is a continuation phase of this fluoroquinolone, clofazimine, pyrazinamide, ethambutol. So it is like this. There is nothing to do actually. You have to just remember, and just remember based on how the drugs are used, because bedaquiline you cannot give more than 4 to 6 months, and there is also a dosage for that. Okay, bedaquiline you cannot give more than 4 to 6 months. High dose isoniazid and ethionamide you cannot also continue. So the rest of the drugs are then continued in the continuation phase for 5 months. Shorter injectable containing regimen, because here there are no injectables. So if you cannot give bedaquiline, or people who are contraindicated for bedaquiline, you can give them injectables like kanamycin or amikacin. Okay, and here in the continuation phase those injectables are then removed. High dose isoniazid and ethionamide are not given in the continuation phase, and the longer XDR TB regimen, it is given for 18 to 20 months with bedaquiline for 6 months, and then fluoroquinolone, linezolid, clofazimine, cycloserine. And how to give them, how to combine them, it is depending on the patient, because for the group A drugs you have to include all of them, that is moxifloxacin or levofloxacin, bedaquiline, linezolid, you have to include every one of them. Group B drugs you have to add one or both of the drugs, that is clofazimine, cycloserine or terazidone, and then complete the regimen when the drugs from group A and group B cannot be used by these other drugs. So in this way you are forming this regimen. So depending on the patient who is contraindicated to what, because not all drugs can be given to everyone. Okay, so this is how you are making the regimen for the resistant TB cases, right? So I will tell you what to do. You go and read Park and see that what are the drug regimens are written in your book. Okay, you just read the regimens first, you see and familiarize yourself with the drugs that are given. In the next class, we will start with which drugs can be given to which patients. Okay, we will just have an overview of that, and then we will move on to the programmatic aspect. I think this is the last one, the isoniazid preventive therapy. Okay, because in people who are living with the TB cases, who are people living with active TB cases, they are highly susceptible to developing the active TB themselves. So they are then given the isoniazid for preventive therapy, IPT. So 6 months of daily isoniazid for PLHIV, infants less than 12 months in contact with active TB, then household contacts below 5 years of age, other risk groups such as children or adults on immunosuppressive therapy, silicosis, dialysis, anti-TNF treatment or transplantation. So all these vulnerable groups are given the 6 months of daily isoniazid doses. Okay, 6H, that is isoniazid. And what is 3HP? 3HP is 3 months of weekly isoniazid plus rifampicin 12 doses for persons older than 2 years of age and other risk groups. So you can also give this isoniazid preventive therapy in the form of 3 months of weekly isoniazid plus rifampicin 12 doses for persons older than 2 years. So in this way you can give the isoniazid preventive therapy. Okay. Again, finally the World TB Day, it is celebrated on March 24th. You also have to remember this. This is an important MCQ.